So Dave, when I met you, like most musicians in Cardiff, many years ago. But when you were originally on Splot Road, we were talking about it earlier. When I first came to see you, you managed to bamboozle me into buying a lovely Takamine, which I still have all these years later.
Yeah, we bamboozled many a man and woman.
Which I can say for the record, I'm never going to sell as long as I'm on this planet. By the way, but. Since then, of course, you got known for you moved around the corner to Janet Street. You had your operation there, and I loved that place. It was kind of really quirky place.
Yeah.
And then eventually you moved on now to doing your own thing from home.
Yeah.
But I remember we had a conversation once when I was down there, and you told me about this bit of wood that you'd come across, which had a link with. At one time with our rival university. Do you want to tell us about that?
It's your rival university.
Yeah, well, they're all our rivals, aren't they, really?
Okay. Yeah, no, I had a customer who was a contractor, and he turned up one afternoon and said, there's a load of mahogany available that's going to be burnt. It's going to go in the skip.
Yeah.
And it was the old examination rooms at Park Place at the University of Wales, and he said, free to a good home. And at the time it was totally useless to me because I was building electric guitars, mainly sort of Fender replicas.
Yeah, you were known for that for years, weren't you?
Yeah. And it was the wrong dimensions, it was the wrong material, but I thought, it's a lot of good timber for nothing. So I took it off him.
Had he hunted you down in your shop then? He knew you did guitars,
he knew, yeah, he knew that I was interested in wood. And I just put it into storage, basically.
Yeah.
But now it's come into its own.
And now it's turned into guitars.
Because some of it I've had resawn for making the rims and the backs.
Wow.
And the rest of it I'm using for neck making stock.
So these guitars here, they feature some of that wood, do they? Some of them, yeah?
Yeah, all the necks.
All of them, yeah?
All the necks are from that stock, and this one, the body is from it as well.
What makes a good guitar then, Dave? In terms of, when you're making your guitars, what makes them
well, I build for myself.
Yeah.
So, I can only tell you what I like to hear.
Okay.
And
what's that?
Well, I like fingerstyle playing.
Yeah.
And so I like a guitar that's sort of balanced, plenty of volume so that you don't have to overplay all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it, really. Just decent tone.
Do they smell lovely as well, do they?
They smell of nitrocellulose, which some people like it, some people don't. I'm highly allergic to it, but I love the smell of it.
Yeah. It's different guitars though with different woods. Of course, there is a kind of there is a smell factor. I bought I can only afford. It's not one of the best Gibsons, but it's an original Gibson, but it's from Montana.
Yeah.
And it's notorious for having this great smell of the Montana mountains, man.
Yeah.
And I can't stop.
Yeah.
I love the smell of that guitar.
Yeah.
It's something to do with the senses, though, isn't it? The guitar,
With vintage guitars, you open the case and there's always a smell. It's not always a particularly nice smell, but it is the smell of a vintage guitar. It's a bit like mouldy old books and that sort of thing,
Who tends to buy your guitars? Is there a typical Dearneley, buyer? Obviously, you sell all around the world, I guess.
No, not really. Just, the ones that Mike sold for me, I've really no idea where they've gone, So I couldn't really tell you. And from people locally that have got them, they just generally tend to be working musicians, which is what I would like. I don't really want them going into collections where they're not going to get played. I would prefer that, they're built as working tools. They're not pieces of artwork. They're a tool.
So the difference is is that more of a parlour size, this one here, or towards?
Well, I call it my Model 1.
Okay.
Actually, across the bottom.
Yeah.
They're not far short of a jumbo.
Yeah.
They're 15 and a half inches across the bottom.
Shallow top end body.
25-inch scale length.
Yeah.
which I just find is a comfortable scale length for acoustic playing, especially for fingerstyle. Some people like a slightly longer scale length. I find that with this design, this scale length works. All the numbers just sort of fell right.
And actually, this is this guitar is one of the more. It's actually the most expensive one.
It's the most expensive one. Yeah.
What would that be? You know, what makes it more expensive than the others? And Dave,
Just the timber.
Just,
just the rarity of the materials, and it's a restricted timber.
And in that you're going to run out of it at some point, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've only got enough. I've probably only got the makings of 3 or 4 more.
Yeah.
So, and once it's gone, it's gone.
And they become, I suppose, they become more and more collectible for those people in the know. I saw one
for
of yours.
Those in the know, yeah, I guess so.
I saw one of yours. I might have been Reverb on one of these sites the other day, and you know, it's a Dearneley, and that was being sold on for some, but that was going for, you know, serious money.
Yeah.
And I heard Bella Collins playing one in a jam night.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a good player anyway, but
Yeah.
I thought, man, that's a beautiful guitar. I had to go and ask her what it was, and it turned out it was a Dearneley, and of course, number 3, number 4, I think it was.
Number 3, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they've come on a bit since then, actually. Well, I like to think they have.
So, if I was new to guitars, or whatever, let's put it a different way. If I was married to a person who didn't understand why I needed so many guitars, what's the justification? You know, why should I be spending serious money on another guitar? Why would I need another guitar, Dave?
I've no idea. It seems some people have a never-ending desire to own more and more guitars.
Yeah.
I've never been one of those people, actually.
Do you get emotionally attached to your guitars? Your own guitars?
Yeah, my own guitars.
Yeah, yeah.
I get emotionally attached to the ones that I make. Sometimes it's, sometimes when you've made something and you think, fuck me, that's the one.
Yeah.
It's hard to let them go. In fact, there's a couple I've kept that I wouldn't let go. For that, well, one I've kept that I wouldn't let go.
So obviously, we're in Moto music now, and you have a working relationship with Mike. Obviously, 'cause this is literally Dearneley corner. So people can see them on the walls, and I guess they could come in and contact you and ask you to make one up. I suppose to a similar spec. Maybe that.
I tend not to. I won't stray far from what I'm doing. So it's not that I wouldn't take a commission, but I wouldn't take a commission for something that wasn't what I do, if that makes sense. If somebody wants a Martin replica or a Gibson replica, there are plenty of people out there that do that. I'm not the man for the job. I build these.
So I want to ask you a slightly tricky one. So, I mean, my memories of going to your place in Janet Street, I kind of just loved the whole process of going through that door. You could only be seen from the one side, and the click, the magic click, and you're in, and then you're just surrounded by music, and the smell of music, they're making music, and then up the windy old stairs, and there you be. It was quite a special place looking back.
A lot of that was John.
Yeah, of course.
Sadly missed.
Of course, yeah.
I'm afraid.
Yeah,
but it was something that came about through necessity. There was never any money spent on it, and there was never really any time spent on it. It was a bizarre set of circumstances that took us there. If you go back to Snatch It Back's second album, Sleeve, you'll see a photograph of us all lounging against the front of that workshop.
Oh yeah.
When it had big garage doors, and there were 2 old Jaguars that John and I had stored there that we thought one day we would restore. And we'd been renting the place for quite a while just to keep these cars in. And we ended up with a shop on Splot Road, and there was a bidding war going on between the bakery on one side and the housing association on the other.
Oh yeah.
They wanted the property. And it was right at the top of that sort of 80s housing boom. And we thought, fuck it, maybe now's the time to make a move.
And then that place became available around the corner, did it?
Well, we'd been renting that place around the corner.
For the cars?
Yeah, for the cars. And the guy that was renting it to us, who had been a local butcher, who's retired. He said, well, if you want to turn it into a workshop, just crack on. And maybe we'll think about selling it to you at a later date. So, which is exactly what we did. We just moved everything from Splot Road into that place. Yeah. I took the upstairs, John took the downstairs. Yeah. We did have to put a floor in the upstairs rear, and we got Paul, the bass player from the Snatchits, to come and do some block work on the back wall. Yeah. Because the whole thing was, the building wasn't actually attached to next door. There was a sort of gap down the back retaining wall, and it was all very precarious. So we got that sorted out. We put a floor in, and we just moved in there. It was all done within a couple of weeks, and so it was never organised. You know, no. John had his space, I had my space, and it just sort of it just turned into what it was organically.
I mean, having been there a number of times over the years, it never was organised.
No,
from the customer's perspective, which was actually great.
It was.
It had a nice higgledy-piggledy
complete reflection of the pair of us, really.
Yeah, it was just a great place. I mean, for anyone who
I mean, it wasn't to everybody's taste. All those people who like their guitars nicely polished.
Yeah, it wasn't conventional.
Stayed away, you know. And thank God they did, because they're not the people that I wanted to be dealing with.
No. But so we'll maybe sit down in a bit. Maybe might be able to play a bit of a guitar.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
See if we can tempt you into doing that. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about the setup at home now. You know, how does it work for you? Because I wouldn't have a clue how to start building a guitar. You know, what's the setup at home in terms of you've got this big old lump of wood, you've got a set of tools, you kind of know what you're doing. Do you have like a method that you use? How does it kind of work?
It starts with a soundboard, which I tend to make those regardless of a particular build in mind. I'll make a couple of soundboards and just let them hang around. I use this method. Some people call it cylinder built. You'll notice.
Can we get one down?
Let's have a look at this one. I never knew how these bloody things work. You know.
Can we call security?
That one I know.
There we are. We're in the building.
They're quite.
The
Americans call it barrel built.
Okay.
I sort of know it as referred to as cylinder built. And so I start off with a soundboard. Yeah. Brace that up to that sort of arched shape, and then I just leave them hang around.
Have you got a particular bit of kit which is like a template or something? How'd you get it anywhere near that shape?
I cut the shape out, you know.
Yeah.
Got the shape on a piece of...
Like a jig or something?
On a piece of board, yeah. I've got a mould, basically, that the whole thing sits in when you...
Can I sniff your sound hole, Dave?
Yes, you can.
It's fairly nice.
Yeah.
Woody. Very woody. You have a very woody sound hole, sir. Hey, it's even in tune.
No, I mean the...
Yeah. So you got. What's the next bit? Where'd you go from there?
Generally, I'll make the back.
Yeah.
Brace the back. And when I'm happy with that, and when the soundboard's been hanging up for a little while and it's done whatever it's going to do, take up a shape, and then I attempt to make the rims.
Okay.
And that's
so you say attempt is that can go wrong then, can it?
That's the bit that's
the tricky bit, yeah.
That's most fraught, yeah. It's the bit that's most likely to go wrong. Basically, just thin timber, heated, and bent over a form. I mean, that's essentially it. Yeah. Make the rims, and then the trick is to fit the rims to the front and the back. And that takes a little bit of work, just getting the rims to fit the fact that you're trying to get two pieces of straight wood to fit two pieces of very curved wood. Yeah. So there's a lot.
It's a beautiful finish. They're all really, nicely. The binding, everything all really nicely done. You take obviously you take a massive pride in what you do, but they're not over ornate. They're not.
I try to
not
keep
overly
them
fussy.
simple.
Are they? Yeah,
I try to stay away from too much pearl.
Yeah.
I don't mind a little bit round a sound hole, but I'm not this sort of thing. You know, tarts and bag guitars. Yeah. For me, I'm afraid.
Nice guitar as it is, of course. He says
it's probably a very nice guitar, but I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But a lot of people.
It's a lot more fussy though. Straight away.
Some people buy on looks.
Yeah.
You know. So you know, each to their own. But I would. I just like them as simple as possible. Yeah.
And you don't sell any electrics here at all? Do you still sell?
The odd one comes up for sale. Yeah. I mean, I'm not making any more, but it seems to have gone. There was one over there, but it looks like it's sold, which is always good.
Yeah. You see them knocking around. You still see people. I'm thinking of Danny Chang. I think he plays at Dearneley, doesn't he?
He's got one. Yeah. Oh, there's a few out there. God, I have no idea how many. I never kept a close record, really.
They all have serial numbers, though, I guess. No? All right. No. Okay.
They're usually just signed with a date.
Yeah.
And sometimes I even forget to do that. I sort of did it on purpose, really, so that collectors in the future won't have a fucking clue, and the other myths will be.
Nice. Yeah. But I mean, you said earlier about Bella. I think she had number 3. I think you said you had number 4. So do you know more or less? Would you know more or less these? Or would that again be guesswork?
I think they're probably. I think
you'd have to have a think about that.
That was 22, I think. So I don't know the rhyme. No, just dated.
Well, maybe.
I think that'd be 22. That'd be 21. So that'd be.
Yeah.
Close
enough for jazz.
Around about those numbers.
Close enough. Yeah. I don't know whether we could possibly have a sit down and have a little chat about stuff. Would you possibly be able to grab a guitar, possibly to have a little noodle?
Go on then.
Which is your noodle?
I don't know.
Could go with the most expensive one for fun.
Oh no. Let's have a look at this one.
All right. Let's go and grab a seat.
That works.
I'll grab a seat there.
Where do you want me?
Well, I can I have you here, baby?
Yeah. Come on, leg over. Who loves you?
Well, on those double entendres, they never.
They make the edits.
They never end. So, I mean, what's it actually feel like for you to actually, when you pick up that guitar, do you kind of remember making this one, or it was a rainy day, or some memories of the kind of process of doing it?
Just the process of doing it, really.
Yeah. You don't have particular kind of memories or attachments. It's a cutaway, this one, of course.
Still got some shavings inside it. Look.
Ah, yeah. Well, a bit of added value there, isn't there? So, I mean, as a guitarist, I suppose I know you mostly for your time with, the Snatch It Back, really, and the kind of the blues guitar kind of playing. But you've obviously been playing, in bands from an early age, so it's quite a while now. No? When did you start playing in bands then?
I was nearly 20. I was 18.
Okay.
I didn't pick up an electric guitar until I was about 18.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that happened by accident, like most things in my life.
Yeah. Well, you've had some good accidents.
That's where I met John, actually. I'd just finished art college, and I was back at home working in a job that I hated. And there was a guy locally who was a bit of a wide boy, really, I guess.
Where was locally then? This is
just outside Sheffield.
Right, yeah.
And there was a guy locally who was a part-time professional wrestler and a sales rep that my father used to sort of meet occasionally in the pub. And he fancied himself as a bit of an entrepreneur, and through his contacts on the club circuit, through his wrestling, he decided he was going to find a band to manage. And he came down and saw John playing with the band that John was in at the time. This would be 1970, I guess. He was resident at the Vale Club in Pontyclean with a sort of pop harmony band.
So where I live these days, Pontyclean. Yeah. Not in that part, particular posh part.
There was John, there was Jed from the Jedis, Bob Watkins, who's no longer with us.
Oh yeah, of course, Bob, yeah.
Cripple guy. And a guy called Norton Williams from Pennygraig, who I'm not sure where he is these days, or if he's still with us. And this guy brought this band up to Sheffield. It got him a load of work. Oh yeah. And the wide guy, Ron, he said to me, Dad, he said, your lad's interested in music, isn't he? He said, I need somebody to drive these lads about. He said, I give him 25 quid a week, which is like a fiver more than I was earning in the job that I was doing. Yeah. This was 1971. Wow. And I said, yeah, that sounds like a decent deal. And so I just started roadieing for him. I mean, I'd played guitar, I just played acoustic guitar, played folk in it. I was always into folk music as a school kid. Rock and roll had not really crossed my horizon that much. And one thing led to another. I was driving him around, we were earning good money, and the guitarist dropped one of the bass cabinets on his foot one night. Ended up in hospital with a severed... Another bit of luck for you, Dan. Yeah, another bit of luck. Yeah. He ended up in hospital with a severed toe. And the following day, they were supposed to be going up to Newcastle to do a week's work on a Newcastle circuit, which was a big deal in those days for bands in clubland. And I mean, clubland is a big deal in South Yorkshire. Well, all over the north it was back then. And they said, well, you know a few chords, don't you? I said, you could do it. So, on the drive up, one of the lads in the band drove, and they taught me the sort of basic chords of the set on the way up to Newcastle. Literally sitting in the back of the van, showing you in the back of the van. Wow. Yeah. And I mean, I basically mimed for 3 or 4 nights. At the keyboard, do it all. Yeah. But gradually got into it, and after a couple of months, they got really fed up with the sort of bingo and the sort of regimen of working in the clubs. I mean, it was pretty grim. Yeah. And despite the money, they said, "Oh, bugger this! Let's go back to Wales and form a proper band." Yeah. And I just sort of went along with it. So how did that graduate into blues? Is that what the band became? No, it was sort of prog. Okay. Yeah. It's like I couldn't even hum you one of the songs. It was a mixture of sort of rock and roll covers and our own stuff, which was sort of proggy, which was the thing that was happening at the time. Yeah. Sort of so this is still sort of early mid 70s. Yeah. Well, 1971, 72. Yeah. Woodstock and all that and all that kind of vibe. We went abroad. The first time we went and played abroad was late 71 into 72. And we literally just put the gear in a van and went with a couple of agents' phone numbers and nothing in the book. Wow. It was that or lose the flat.
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
and have the gear repossessed because it was all on finance.
How do you think, I'm thinking about Brexit and all the rest of it to some extent, how do you think,
Killed it.
yeah, I was going to say,
Killed it.
how has it
Stone
affected,
fucking dead.
if any band wanted to do that now, yeah.
Well, all you can do is take a gamble, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
I can't see how a band that's just working on a local circuit on the money that they're earning could possibly afford to do it.
Crossing borders and you know, visas and
I mean, when we went back in the day, even though we set off with no particular plan, we had to have a carnet that had to be stamped and verified at every crossing of a border.
Yeah.
And I mean, back then, if you had, we were a bunch of hippies basically. So you turn up at Arkin on the
body search every time.
Yeah, the snap of rubber gloves is not unfamiliar.
Yeah.
You turn up at Arkin on the Belgian-German border at say 11 o'clock at night. They take your passports off you and then keep buggering you around till 6 o'clock in the morning, just because they can. And it strikes me that we've stepped backwards. So,
I mean, without getting into politics at all really here, just think you stepped on your cable a bit.
Don't. Don't get me started.
No, but I don't want to provoke it too much, but, the Schengen thing, where you can go from border to border, drive around easily tour. I mean, all that's kind of shattered, isn't it, for, I suppose, British musicians, really?
Well, I mean, it's shut off. It shut off a lifeline to some people. I mean, when I think back to when the Snatchits first started in the early 80s, when we still had to have carnets then on the early trips.
Yeah.
And when it went from having to do that to being able to just go, the difference it made was absolutely phenomenal, and everybody breathed a big sigh of relief.
Yeah. For people who are not familiar with Snatch It Back, I mean, tell us a little bit about how many years we did with them, and maybe some of the characters in the band. And
well, we're coming up to 40 years.
Wow!
In fact, we've booked the Earl Hague for February the 10th.
Oh, marvellous! Yeah.
40th anniversary bash.
Yeah.
Oh God, where to start? Started in '83, and I was nothing to do with it at that time. I was still playing with Danny and Nigel in Just Good Friends. I'd been in Singapore. Spud Murphy, Rob Farmer on drums, who's no longer with us, Paul on bass, Chris, who's no longer with us, and that was the four of them to start with. And then he drafted in Di Williams on guitar as well. Yeah,
good guitarist too.
Yeah. Then 83, late 83, things were starting to crumble with Danny and Nigel, and I was just sort of casting an eye about really to see if there's anything else.
Because you played, was it Reading Festival you played with them? So I mean, pretty major thing to do.
I mean, they had a deal with, we signed a deal with Magnet Records in, I think it would have been 83. Or late 83. We had a single that was shortlisted for the Radio 1 playlist, and the week that it was shortlisted to be played, Magnet Records got done by the BPI for hyping Roland Rat single.
All right.
So that was the death knell for us. There you go. That's how rock and roll works.
That's a great rock and roll Roland Rat story, isn't it? Yeah. We don't get many of those,
Yeah, Danny will verify that. So that was the nail in the coffin for that, as far as I was concerned.
It's all about timing.
To be honest, I want, they started to get stylists involved and dressing up and all the rest of it. And to be honest,
not really your thing.
It wasn't really my bag.
Do you want to play me a couple of nice blues chords on our day while we're here?
There's one. There's a 5. There's a 4. And there's a 1.
It's got a lovely resonance, that guitar. I can hear it sort of nicely creaking about while you're sitting there,
They do it for me.
Yeah.
But as I say, I build them for myself.
Other bands you played with over the years, I'm just trying to think. I think you played a little bit of time with Alien Sex Fiend, didn't you? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a bit of a change of direction.
That was a bit of a change of direction.
With Nick, yeah?
Yeah.
What was that actually like for you? It was a total change of direction, wasn't it?
Totally enjoyed it. Really did. It ended a bit sadly, which was a shame. It's a shame. We still speak. I saw him in the co-op the other day. We had a chat. I did America with him in '98.
Yeah.
It was something that was born out of the workshop. We just used to maintain their gear periodically when they were going out on tour. Yeah. And at that time, sort of late 80s into the early 90s, they spent a lot of time in America. Yeah. They did an awful lot of touring out there.
Very, very quirky kind of stuff, wasn't it?
Completely madcap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely out of my experience.
Yeah.
And I think it always presented a problem. I don't know whether you're probably not aware of it because you're that bit younger than I am, but there was a definite, when punk came along, there was a definite division between the people that had gone before and the people that came after. And I think that attitude sort of persisted. So I was always like the token hippie in a very sort of punk orientated ethos.
Okay.
So it was always slightly strange.
Yeah.
But I mean, on a musical level, there's an awful lot goes into what they do.
I suppose for you as a guitarist, because it was quite electronic, a lot of it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you could noodle, I suppose, could you?
A lot of it was about making noise.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the original guitar player, Dave, had been that's just formative guitar. You know, it's the sort of things that you do when you're first learning. You know, I mean, I don't think, like when I got into playing, it was nothing to do with being a musician. It was far more to do about possibly getting laid, and also about an element of rebellion. I mean, times were different then.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. You know, I'm a kid of the '50s, really. So I mean, everything was in black and white up until the Beatles came along.
Talking about being a kid of the 50s, we've got some students here today from the University of South Wales. I'm just wondering if you want to come a bit closer with that boom, actually, to you'll get slightly better sound. But if you want to come around, I don't know whether you're filming anything at the moment or capturing anything. They're doing a podcast for Keep Cardiff Live, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah.
And cool. You know, they've not met a legend like you before, so you can see how
you'll likely never meet another.
Blown away they are. But maybe if you were to ask Dave, Joel, you could possibly say to Dave, "Hey Dave, since your guitars are being sold here at Moto Music, what are your thoughts on Moto Music as a shop and in terms of how it compares to other stores? It's a bit of a special place, isn't it, Dave? You could say, Joel.
Well, I like it. I like it because they sell my stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a very sort of, it's clubbable, isn't it? It's that sort of, it's not like your average shop.
No. I mean, I'm just looking around now while you're talking and looking at all the beautiful guitars and amplifiers. It's got a real retro vibe to it. The thing with the bikes is kind of nice, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think it's a really sort of nice idea as a setup.
And what about Mike Podesta? Because it's kind of Mike Podesta's place, is his dream, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
What?
Take my hat off to him.
Yeah, any dealings with Mike over the years? And because
I've known him. Yeah. You know, well, I've known of him. You know, throughout my career as a guitar technician, because he was first at Cranes and then at PMT. Now here, so he's always been there in the background, and he's occasionally sent things my way. So we've got a fairly decent relationship.
And I suppose for the students, they probably haven't been in that many music stores. But what do you think is a bit different about this place if you compare it to somewhere like, shall we say, PMT?
Well, you're not being leapt on.
Yeah.
As soon as you're walking through the door, it's for people that are serious. I think.
Any guitars here apart from yours grab your eye while you've been here?
Yeah, there's loads.
Any of your
Luckily, I'm not a collector.
Any dream guitars here for you?
Not particularly. No. I don't have dream guitars, really.
There's no guitar you've ever wanted to own?
No, there's a few that I've wanted to own, and when I did, I was disappointed. In all the years of repairing, there's probably only a handful of acoustic guitars that have come across my bench that made me go, wow.
Yeah.
And so I made sure I had a good look at what was going on and made some notes.
Yeah.
And that sort of played into what I'm doing now. As far as electric guitars go, as long as they do the job, I'm not really bothered. To me, it doesn't really matter what's on the headstock, so long as it fulfills its function.
I'll ask you this when you might have, I don't know what your approach would be to this question, but I'll ask you about, in terms of how guitars, the making of guitars has improved, I think, a lot over the years, electric guitars in particular. You don't have to spend massive amounts of money these days.
It's very difficult to buy a dog anymore.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult. And that speaks to the sort of CAD and modern engineering techniques. It's wood engineering, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, CNC and CAD makes a lot of things possible.
So electrics versus acoustics, and you're sitting there with your acoustic in your hand. As someone who's spent a bit of money on guitars over the years, would you say, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, is it kind of worth spending a bit more on an acoustic or taking more time by considering the acoustic than the electric? I mean, because of the body resonance and everything else and the wood, etc.?
Each to their own.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people will go and buy, a mid-price, I don't know, I don't want to name a brand really. I mean, there are loads out there. You can buy a decent playing acoustic guitar for a couple of £100. And to some people that's satisfying enough. I think it's,
The price tag on this one is 3,800.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are.
Totally unrepentant.
No, I don't mean. I don't mean. Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's about the perception of the buyer, isn't it? Like you say, you could buy a cheap guitar off the shelf, made in some factory, or you could buy something which sounds like this.
You might be very lucky and find one off the shelf from a factory that sounds as good as this, because every now and again you'll get one. The only difference between this and something that's turned out in the factory is that I've spent the time to sit down and make it by hand.
Loosely, how long would it take you to make a guitar like this?
About 3 months start to finish.
Wow.
Most of that time is the finishing.
Yeah.
I mean, the building, the dry woodworking I can do in about a fortnight.
Yeah.
In fact, if I had an order book full and I was sort of up against it, I could speed that process up even. But it's not what I'm about. I mean, what I'm really trying to do is build the best guitar that I can, and hopefully make it somewhere near affordable for somebody.
None of your acoustic have electrics in them, do they? I don't think.
Yeah.
Some of them do? Oh, some of them do,
yeah. This one has.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's, I think 2 out of 4.
Yeah.
It's... because I'm thinking of the sort of end user and the end player, some people think that putting onboard electrics detracts from its acoustic capabilities.
So they tend to mic them up,
They tend to mic up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just leave it as an open question. If somebody's interested in one and they want it electrified, then I'm quite happy to do so within limits. There are certain things that I wouldn't fit, certain things that I would.
Yes.
These particular ones, nice and simple. It's the K&K Pure Mini.
Is there electric under here somewhere?
No.
You just plug it in. Shut. Yeah. DI or whatever. They do an upgraded version of this system that does have a sound hole bezel, and I sometimes fit that. I've had good results with that. Yeah.
My own instruments are both fitted with LR Baggs Anthems, which is like a dual system. They work quite nicely.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's up to the end purchase. If you want some electrified, I'm quite happy to do so.
Well, it's electrifying to be in your presence, Dave. Anyway,
Oh,
so
there
you know that.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
Just to ask you a couple of quick ones just before we bring it to close. I don't know whether the students want to maybe capture some more audio with the owners of the store here, but firstly, I know you play folk stuff as well, don't you? Who are you currently playing with?
Just the Snatchets.
Just the Snatchets.
And Dewdropper.
Okay, and Dewdropper is the kind of the folk
Derek
thing.
and Elaine Morgan.
Yeah.
That's something that John got me involved in because he was like a percussionist and hurdy-gurdy player.
Yeah.
And we decided to we just kept it going. So.
And apart from Moto Music, is there anywhere else that people can go to find out more about Dearneley guitars or to purchase Dearneley guitar?
Well, I don't know, unless there's stuff out there. I don't Google myself. There's probably stuff out there.
This is the main place to come and have a look and have a listen.
As far as I'm concerned at the moment. You can contact me through Facebook. I don't have a website. I can't be asked, basically. So they can contact me through Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I tend to, if I've done a build, I tend to put a file of photographs up on Facebook.
Okay.
And just put it up for public view. So I mean, I'm not sort of massively into social media. I'm not massively into advertising. I'm just hoping that Michael keeps selling a few, and I sell the odd one privately as well.
You're doing a handful of guitars. It takes you 3 months of time. You know, it's not a mass market.
No, I mean,
market thing.
if I did 6 in a year, that's
a
good year.
Yeah. I suppose a final question I'll ask you, because we got I don't know whether Tony can maybe if we can see the students here in the background filming as well. So they're putting together a kind of podcast feature for Keep Cardiff Live. I mean, I don't know what their thoughts are on music, whether they've ever been in a music store in their lives, if they have any interest in music, I don't know. But what do you think? What kind of music scene in terms of bringing through bands and paid gigs and opportunities for musicians these days? We talked about the changes in going from country to country, for example, but even starting up, if these guys want to set up a new band and have some success, I would argue it's probably a lot more difficult to do that now, probably, than it was, when you started up. What would your advice be for up-and-coming young musicians, I suppose?
Yes and no.
Okay, the online stuff is good.
Yeah, I mean, social media and all that side of it is very good for promotion, although, it reaches a saturation point and people tend to sort of click on, give it 5 seconds and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of that myself. I don't know, it's just bloody hard work and commitment and staying true to what you want to do.
Would you have any advice for them starting out these days?
I can't really say, because when we started off, I said it was nothing to do with musicianship. It was, as I say, it was a time of protest, and it seemed like a really good way to protest, because it was like 2 fingers to everybody. There's a possibility of maybe meeting young ladies, which is, when you're young, it's never a bad thing.
I can't remember, Dave.
I mean, the whole thing has now become so professionalised. Your students are sort of proof of that very thing, really. Even guitar repair has become professionalised. There are courses for this, there are courses for that, there are degrees for this and degrees for that. I mean, there was none of that back then. It was just a question of getting on and doing it.
Yeah.
So, any advice I can give, it's you only get out proportionate to what you put in. It's hard graft.
Yeah.
I mean, of people locally that look as though they might be doing something, James Oliver is probably...
Yeah.
He's probably the best example.
Yeah.
And my God, he works so fucking hard. I just think... unless you really are serious and you're really prepared to put the graft in, forget it. Because it's a lot more difficult to monetize it now than it ever was before.
Yeah.
Even though, streaming is a scandal.
Yes, well, that's another story.
Don't get me started. I'll give you Robert for it.
Dave, just to close off, obviously, thank you very much for your time. Lovely to see your guitars.
Check will be in the post.
Well, it might be one day. But
I doubt it.
I wondered if you wanted to maybe play us out with a little...
No, not really.
No?
I don't do any party pieces.
Oh.
I'm a band player.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. I'm not.
Have you got one lovely chord you like, maybe?
No, not.
He's hard working,
I do like open tuning.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I like to get the old bottleneck.
Is that Dad, Gad, isn't it?
No, I think that's just open D.
You gonna grab a bottleneck? There we are.
I'm never far from a bottleneck.
No.
There you go.
Bit of Raikudo, is it?
Well,
Or thereabouts.
Or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I do like the old. Yeah, there you go.
Dave Dearneley,
That's what you're having.
thank you very much.